Zoning Commission for Thursday, March 9th at 7 p.m. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
It's back here.
It's over here.
Yes.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Fire evacuation is right behind you. Please go out those doors and out into the town green, or you can go out over here and down these set of doors, downstairs and out the back. And please, if there is an issue, please walk away as far away from the building as you possibly can. Thank you. Secretary, please call the roll.
Lou Fiore.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Francis Alimo.
Here.
Kiran Majmudar.
Here.
Kenneth Alinsky is absent. Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
And Nicholas Lefakis is absent.
Thank you. Commissioner Helinski will not be with us tonight. It is the month of March, and it is Commissioner D'Antonio's turn to be a full-time regular, so he will be sitting in his place tonight with Vinnie as the backup if so needed. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting for February 23rd?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Chairman Higley, seconded by Vice Chairman DeGray. Is there any discussion on the minutes from the February 23rd? Any amendments, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes from the regular meeting February 23rd, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Vinnie? Okay. Let the record show. No, it's for the minutes. It's for the minutes. So let the record show that it was unanimous. Town Attorney Report, February 22nd. Everybody has that? The one thing I will just mention, even though it's not in our jurisdiction, I'll just mention it for info for you guys, is that item 5 on that report was tabled by the ZBA in their last meeting, just to let you know. Seeing none, now we'll move on to public participation. At this point in the meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions relating to planning and zoning in Enfield from anyone who is present, provided that no one may discuss any matter of business that is already elsewhere on the agenda, any matter that is part of an open public hearing of this commission, or any matter where a decision of this commission is still pending, and that includes anything that's pending legal activity. Is there anyone who would like to come before the Planning and Zoning to discuss any items? Is there anyone? Yeah, please feel free.
Should I sit down? Or
Yes, sit down. Is a red light on the microphone?
Awesome.
And you need to identify yourself for the record.
All right. My name is Josiah Schley. I'm a 30-year-old cannabis patient. I reside in...
Your address? Yeah.
Yep. I actually reside in Simsbury, Connecticut.
So what is the business here, sir? This is the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yep. Because I just had the same issue happen in my town, and it applies directly to what's going on in your consideration for your town.
I'm not sure that since you don't live in the town and you have no Apple application, you really don't have a standing here. So
Okay.
if you want to send something in an email, I don't believe, does the commission want to hear from someone who doesn't live in town and has no application?
I would ask what the topic is.
Yeah.
It's on the cannabis dispensary, because we just had one.
That's on our, we can't talk about that because that's on our agenda.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry, sir. Anyone else? Public participation? Anyone else in public participation? Seeing none, public participation is closed. There's no bond releases tonight. There's no presentation tonight. So now we'll move on to new public hearings. The Secretary, please read the application.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings at their regular meeting on Thursday, March 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers at 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing number 3057, 90C Elm Street. Application for a hybrid retail cannabis establishment, Willowbrook Enfield LLC, DBA Zen Leaf Enfield, applicant, Enfield Square Realty LLC, Enfield CH LLC, Enfield Nasim LLC owner, map 43, lot 27, BR zone.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Applicant and representatives here, identify yourselves for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Richard Roberts. I'm an attorney with Halloran Sage in Hartford, Connecticut.
My name's Anthony Marsico on behalf of Verano and Zenleaf.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We're here tonight On behalf of Willowbrook Enfield LLC, DBA Zenleaf Enfield, applying for a special permit as a hybrid marijuana retailer, which is a combination medical and recreational facility under your zoning regulations as well as Connecticut state law. We're seeking to locate the facility at 90C Elm Street, the former Outback restaurant that closed a couple of years ago. It's located in the BR zone where the use is permitted as a special permit use. As he introduced himself, this is Anthony Marsico from Verano Holdings. He'll discuss the operational security and kind of practical day-to-day operations of the business so that you can have any questions or concerns about what a dispensary involves and entails answered directly by someone who has significant experience in the building, in the business. He'll also discuss the Verano organization and their approach to how these facilities operate and what their relationship is with the community and the residents. Also with us this evening is Kermit Hua from KWH Enterprises. He prepared the traffic report. He'll make a brief presentation and answer any questions that you might have about traffic impacts. As far as the summary information, it's in the materials that we submitted that have been provided to you. We comply with the site plan requirements. We have more than adequate parking. The building is essentially going to remain in the same location. There will be no expansion of it. We do intend to make substantial upgrades to the appearance of the building, the kind of the landscaping, the parking. Will just improve the site in essentially as many ways as possible. The renderings of what the building is proposed to look like have also been provided to you. With respect to the general special permit criteria, we believe we satisfy those. It's essentially a retail use in a retail zone permitted by state law and your regulations. Because it's a permitted use, it's presumptively compliant with the POCD, and the use is generally compatible with the surrounding uses. With respect to the specific special permit criteria in your cannabis regulations, we've addressed those in the submittal. Odor control basically is not going to be an issue because nothing is going to be growing there, and they will have all kinds of air filtration equipment that Mr. Marsico will describe to avoid having any, undesirable odors leaving the building. The water use and the wastewater is probably going to be less than what was there when it was an Outback. It's going to be customers and employees washing their hands and flushing the toilet. Noise abatement, there really shouldn't be any noise. We're just going to there won't be any manufacturing on site. It will be a retail use. External equipment will be screened as required. Site lighting will be in compliance with your zoning regulations. The traffic issues Kermit will describe, and Anthony will cover the security aspects of how the business operates. Because it's in the BR zone, the separation distances to various uses are kind of triggered, and we have to, ask for modifications under 8.200.5 of your regulations, which are specifically designed to accommodate just the reality of the BR zone as far as what's in it and how far apart things are from each other. Essentially, within the separation distances are a daycare center across the street, down one of the side streets behind the Burger King, called Playful Minds. It's across 4-lane highway behind other businesses, and the likelihood of any kind of issue with intermingling or confusion of customers and clients is virtually nil. It's not a neighborhood where people are going to be pushing the kids to the daycare down the street in the stroller, and even if they were, the way state law and our building is proposed, those people wouldn't necessarily know what is happening in the building, and it wouldn't be, any undue risk to health and safety. There's also My Gym at 136 Elm Street. I think the same analysis holds with respect to that one in terms of, the likelihood of any back and forth traffic. As Mr. Marsico will describe, children are not going to be allowed in this facility under any circumstances. So, it's not like anyone is going to break away from the birthday party and come down the street. So we believe that we have satisfied the criteria that are in your regulations sufficient to allow you to modify those requirements. Just out of an abundance of caution, we did two other things. One, we actually used the location on the earth to determine how far apart things were rather than relying on your GIS. So we have a high degree of confidence that, the perimeters are accurate. We've also disclosed in the memo that accompanied the separation distance document that there were a couple other types of facilities that were arguably, within the separation distances that are located in the mall building itself. But after looking at how terms are defined in your regulations and consulting with town staff on the reasonableness of interpretation of those provisions, we don't believe any of them require any kind of waiver or modification of the separation distance. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Marsico to describe probably the things you care more about.
Yeah, sure. Thank you guys for hearing our application. I think this is the first cannabis dispensary you guys are hearing, so I'm going to go into detail on the operations and a little bit of background on us. So Verano is the parent company. We are a multi-state operator. We operate in 14 states currently, and as far as dispensaries go, operate approximately 124 nationwide. We kind of hang our hat on 5 pillars: compliance, security, customer service, education, and community. And we want to bring all of those into town with our dispensary. Connecticut dispensaries are overseen by the Department of Consumer Protection. It's an agency that regularly audits us, and if we are given the approval here today, we'd be working closely with them on our final state approvals prior to opening. As far as dispensaries go and the actual logistics of who has access to what points, we kind of view a dispensary in 3 tiers from a standpoint of access: public access, limited access, and restricted access. So if you're looking at the floor plan, the reception area, that's where potential customers would walk into the dispensary. At that point, they're going to be greeted by our staff, and they're going to be asked immediately for their credentials, whether it's a medical card and also a state or federal issued ID. This is a hybrid dispensary location that's being proposed, so medical or recreational customers would be allowed to come in. We use a third-party scanner called Veriscan that helps our staff not only do visual checks of the identification, but also verify that the ID is valid and that they are of age to enter the dispensary. Once they have been credentialed, they would be allowed onto the sales floor, or what we would call the limited access area. There again, they're going to be greeted by our staff. The first thing we always like to do is gauge their cannabis knowledge. We see a wide array of customers. Folks who are maybe turning to cannabis for the first time, maybe looking for an alternative to an opioid prescription or something for some sort of ailment that they're looking for, or from a wellness perspective, things like sleep, pain management, things like that. So once we understand that, we'll start going through their list of products. We're going to look at a regimen that's best going to fit them, whether it's being used orally, a topical, all sorts of different things. At that point, once we figure out what products they want, they would walk up to the point of sale counter, complete their transaction, and our expectation once a transaction is completed is that they exit the dispensary to their vehicle and exit our property. Absolutely and very strict no consumption on site policy and no loitering on site policy. Back of house is where all the product's going to be kept. All of our deliveries are going to happen. And to get into the restricted access, you're going to have to be badged. You're going to have to be an employee of our dispensary. All employees have to go through state and federal background checks. They have to be badged by the Department of Consumer Protection. They have to wear that badge on them at all times. All of the access points, we have several different layers of security. All the doors are going to have card reader and some PIN access, and the level of access is going to depend on which employee is allowed in those different areas. Some other points of security that we use: glass breaks, panic alarms, motion sensors, and things of that nature. We also have an alarm monitoring system that goes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Every square inch of our facility is camera monitored with the exception of the restrooms. Those cameras are able to be accessed again by the Department of Consumer Protection. We have cloud backup for those in case there is any sort of incident. We can always view back on those on a regular basis. Talking about the property, I think most of you guys are familiar with it. It is a vacant retail restaurant space. It's been vacant for, I think, approximately 2 or 3 years. It's a tired-looking building. We look to make a significant investment into beautifying that property. Interior and exterior improvements, repaving, striping the parking lot, things of that. We really look at having a positive impact on the community and a positive impact on surrounding businesses. Job creation, we think that this business will create 30 to 40 good-paying jobs, full and part-time, approximately 8 to 12 employees per shift at any given time, with a good living wage, above a living wage, and we also have benefits included for our employees. We think that this business will generate tax revenue to the town and also generate revenue for surrounding businesses. What we're seeing across the country, and we see a lot of similar neighbors now as dispensaries are starting to be in more, hard corners, whereas back in the day they'd be tucked away, really boosting surrounding businesses. We many times are a destination, so people are coming to our dispensary and then hopefully shopping or grabbing a bite to eat at a neighboring business as well. We strive to be good stewards and active in the community. So if there's initiatives in town, we do all sorts of outreach types of events, whether it's, cancer walks, Toys for Tots, Coats for Kids, things like that. We always want to be active and, assuming hopefully we get this approval, we'll find out what's important to the town and stay engaged. That's really important for us. I think that, next steps also would be being in touch with first responders. So obviously talking with the local police chief, things like that, having an open line of communication, making sure that they're comfortable with our security standards. If they have any recommendations, we're very, very open to those. So we look at this as being a long-standing partnership. We understand that a special use permit is a privilege, so we take that very seriously. As Mr. Richards said, not a production and cultivation facility, not seeking to open a consumption lounge. It's strictly a retail facility. So any product that comes into our facility is going to be in finished packaging. It's going to be from a state-licensed Connecticut cultivation or processing center. So it's not going to be like some of the head shops that you see in other towns. The proposed hours of operation are pretty standard retail hours, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. As earlier mentioned, more than sufficient amount of parking, 84 spaces, and there's also some shared arrangements as well. And that pretty much, as far as the operation goes, that's pretty much where we're at, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
My mic's off, so I'm making any noise here. Probably what we usually do is the traffic report now, probably before we start asking questions, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. And for the record, my name is Kermit Hua, Kermit, last name spelled as Hua, as Apple. I'm a traffic engineer for KWH Enterprise LLC in Meriden, Connecticut. I'll just briefly go through this traffic study I prepared. The first, I want to talk about basis of the traffic analysis or the data we used in the analysis. Because of the pandemic, there have been changes in the traffic volumes in the past 2 years. So what I did is I requested DOT data they used in their planning study. The DOT Bureau of Policy and Planning, they maintain a network, especially for important street highways such as Route 22 and Route 190 in Enfield. So they have their database. The issue with their data is the data was based on 2019, that is last year before the pandemic. Actually, some of the restaurants or shops were still open, in the Enfield Square Mall. So I would say that's sort of it is a conservative assumption. In other words, the basis of this data, Outback was still operating. They're still having customers. So what they did is they inflated 2019 data to 2022, and I use those 2022 data as the existing volumes. So these existing volume, in other words, includes the traffic for a lot of the stores that are now closed at the mall, and includes the traffic for the Outback restaurant. That's existing 2022 volume in the study. For what I call build condition, in other words, if this is approved, I have another scenario when this dispensary, how much traffic it will generate. So that's the future build volume. I assume, sometime later, 2023. A DOT suggested I use a growth factor of 0.7% per year. That's what I did. On top of that, as you know, there are also other developments, and we contacted town, and the town asked us to add 4 other developments that potentially will come online in the same time frame. 3 were retail developments on Elm Street, and 1 is a warehouse development on North Maple Street. So that's also included in the future scenario. The overall finding is, if you compare the no-build future 2023 scenario, that is, the scenario includes all the other developments, but not the dispensary. With the build scenario, which is we add a dispensary, we will change little in terms of the peak hour delays at all the intersections around the mall. And there will be no change in level of service, A, B, C, D, E, F, those letter grade, as a result of our development. So, the overall conclusion from this effort is, the dispensary itself will, its traffic impact on area intersections will not be significant. The other part I want to talk about is, how many trips we are generating compared with the previous restaurant trips. If you look at the total trips for the dispensary for the 3 peak hours we analyzed, the weekday morning peak hour, the weekday afternoon peak hour, essentially the peak commuter hours for a weekday, and a Saturday midday peak hour, typically shopping hour, we will generate approximately 65 trips for the weekday morning, 117 for the weekday afternoon, and 179 for the Saturday midday. For the restaurant, the previous restaurant, because they open late, I assume there will be 0 for the weekday morning. According to ITE General, it's a data book published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. The restaurant like Outback, they typically generate about 56 trips in the afternoon peak hour and 69 trips for the Saturday peak hour. So just in terms of net increase, compare this dispensary with the previous restaurant, the net increase will be 65 trips for the weekday morning peak hour, 61 trips, similar for the weekday afternoon peak hour, and 110 trips for the Saturday midday peak hour. So just to give you an idea, if you think about 110 trips, 1 hour, that is 60 minutes, it's a little bit less than 2 trips per minute. Just give a visualization. By the way, when I say trips, a vehicle comes in and go out, that's 2 trips. So, all right. That's pretty much all I have for now. Just overall, I want to summarize. The traffic study really does not just in terms of the overall volumes that you on two state roads on Route 220 and 119. The incremental changes in traffic from this development is not a big jump in terms of percentage increase, and we will not change the level of service at all the major intersections around the mall. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Well, now to go around to any questions from the commission. Well, I guess I'll start off. One of the things I did notice in your application, maybe you didn't really get into it, but I appreciate if you would. I want to get to it. The odor control. So if you don't mind responding about the odor control, appreciate it.
Sure. So, as was earlier mentioned, the odor is really minimal when it comes to a dispensary. We see a lot more odor control checks necessary at a cultivation or processing center. All products that come into our facility are going to be in finished packaging. That packaging is tamper-proof and seal-proof. So some of the concerns that you may have, or what you've seen online or in articles of big jars of marijuana where it's being weighed and packaged on facility, that doesn't happen in the state of Connecticut. Everything's in finished packaging. That being said, all of our product is kept in a vault room in compliance with the Department of Consumer Protection's guidelines. The vault is on an independent HVAC system. We use a HEPA filtration system that helps scrub that a little bit more. There could be a slight scent in the vault, but when I'm saying it's extremely minimal in my experience.
And the reason why I mentioned, because I noticed in here you were doing some significant improvements to that whole
Sure.
odor control on
Sure.
that building. You're
Yep.
bringing a lot of new equipment in there to
Yep.
satisfy beyond the requirements, your own requirements.
Yeah, and a lot of the reason is less with odor control, even though we do have the HEPA filtration. It's more to do with humidity control for our vault. So the vault is always, in all of our dispensaries, on an independent HVAC system. Yep.
Thank you. Another question, I had a question on traffic. And I always forget the name of the agency, so staff's going to help me, but I'm assuming since you're... Yes, thank you. So you've already been in contact with them and you've submitted your plans to OSFA for their approval, since it is on a state highway.
OSTA, when requires approval, if you change the square footage and change the parking, in this case, we're not changing the building square footage and we're not changing the parking.
Okay.
So I assume there must be an OSTA file, a previous STC file for this whole mall development, on file there.
Okay.
But since we are not changing the square footage, we're not adding or subtracting parking, we don't need to renew that permit, in other words.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that new information for me. I appreciate it. The other question I had is, basically, I'm looking at the conditions here that we've drawn up with staff. And just to go through site-specific conditions 13 and 14, you have agreed to repave the total parking area, not just restripe it?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to any of the conditions. So, yes.
And the additional, I don't want to say additional landscaping, but some landscaping as approved under the site plan, PH 2513.
Absolutely. That property definitely needs some TLC, and we anticipate doing so. Again, just a little bit more background on us. We operate these dispensaries all over the country. We want to make these flagship type locations. So a big part of, as you see more dispensaries popping up throughout the state of Connecticut, what's unique about our business as opposed to perhaps a restaurant is dispensaries statewide widely provide the same products at the same price point. So some of the competitive advantage that we have is one, what I touched on, our customer service and specifically the education of the products, but also, people do judge a book by its cover at times. So we want to make that experience first class from the time you're pulling into the parking lot to the time you're leaving. So yes, beautifying the property is going to be a high priority for us.
Thank you. My last question is just, and probably doesn't make any difference really to this application, just for my own curiosity, thinking ahead. Did you purchase this property from what I would call the mall corporation, or are you exclusively leasing it?
Leasing.
You are leasing,
Yep.
okay. Right.
Correct.
Not that it makes a
Yep.
difference, it's just more curious than
Yep.
anything else. Thank you. Commissioner DeGray?
Through the chairman to staff, and on condition 10,
I know it's a relatively new thing, the EV stalls, but I didn't see anything on the site plans. Is that going to be something that's going to be required going forward?
There are thresholds in the statute, in the state mandate. I think it's 30 spaces, I think, is the threshold. There's a question, I think, that we have whether or not this is actually even required, given the fact that this was a prior approved site. The stalls are existing at a particular number, the square footage is not changing. But in the interest of caution and to be conservative, I think we kind of included it in here. If it turns out that they're not required, then they won't have to provide those.
Okay, no, it's just, I know it's relatively new to
Yeah,
the-
I think that
to
the
statute.
interpretation that we're getting, since it's such a new statute, anytime you have that situation, it's difficult to nail down exactly what the legislature was thinking in all respects. And in this case, the best, I think, interpretation we have is that if it's a new build of 30 stalls or more, then they have to meet the minimum 10%. And that's certainly not the case here.
Okay, all right,
So,
that was it, thank you.
and if you wanted, you could certainly, I feel comfortable if you wanted to eliminate that based on what we just, discussed, but I'll leave that up to you. You could say, or you could modify it to say something like, if required,
That might be a better.
X, et cetera, et
All
cetera.
right, thank you.
But thank you for asking.
Make a note of that. Commissioner Limo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. I was one of the members fortunate enough to go visit a dispensary prior to us making our ordinances changes, so here you are, and I'm glad I went. I understand a little more. One of my first questions is, so the one we went to didn't have medical marijuana. Can you tell me the difference between medical and recreation marijuana?
Sure. The products are exactly the same. The guidelines for the products are exactly the same, overseen by the same department. It's simply it's a tagging, and it has to do with the taxation in the state. So the one thing that we do is we prioritize our medical patients, and we also prioritize product for medical patients. So we basically do an internal review of what the medical demand is for our patients, and we have on hand what we call adequate supply for those medical patients. So it has more to do with how we are prioritizing access for the people who really need this stuff, whether it's a cancer patient, someone with MS. There's some really, I've spent a lot of time in dispensaries, and there's some really, traumatic situations that we are giving relief to those folks, and we want to make sure that their product regimen is intact ahead of the recreational customer. But with respect to the actual products, they're grown exactly the same. They're processed under the same standards. All of the products have to go through the same third-party testing. They have to be tested for microbials, fungicides, pesticides, metallics, pass that third-party testing before they're allowed to leave a state facility and enter one of our dispensaries.
Thank you. So you talked about packaging. So are they packaged the same? Because I'm familiar with the packaging from our tour. I thought it was very good the way Massachusetts does it. So
Yeah, was your tour in Massachusetts, or was it in
Massachusetts.
Connecticut?
No, we went to Mass.
Yeah, so we have dispensaries in Massachusetts as well. It's very different in Massachusetts than it is in Connecticut. The packaging is different. There's dosing guidelines that are different in the state of Massachusetts. Connecticut does it slightly different. And, again, open invitation. We have 2 dispensaries currently open in the state of Connecticut, one in Meriden and one in Waterbury. Hopefully a few more here soon. The goal is to have 8 in the state of Connecticut. So, again, assuming hopefully that we get this approval, open invitation to any of the public officials, first responders to come and visit one of our existing facilities. And then prior to, again, if we get the approval, this facility opening, we would love to invite you guys in prior to the public being in there.
The other thing I learned, too, I think that you were in the right spot, location-wise. for this.
Yeah, it's-
I'm glad that our first application's going in that kind of an area.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's pretty interesting, the evolution of dispensaries. I've been in the industry since our company started in 2014, and when some of the more restrictive states put these guidelines in, and towns wanted to maybe capture the tax revenue, but weren't sure how the public was going to adopt this and like it or not like it. They were tucked away in industrial parks and things like that. We'll have it in our town, but let's keep it back there. And I think what you're seeing over the last few years is we are flagship retail. We are anchoring shopping centers. We are probably the most one of the most viable retail businesses out there right now. We neighbor Chipotle's and Starbucks and Apple stores all around the country. Those are common neighbors for us. So I think, again, we really want to put significant investment into the property and into the community. And I think being front and center is where they need to be. So I agree with you.
So I'm glad it's there. And you can imagine, we've had some very vibrant discussions publicly and special meetings over locations and how things were going to work out. So I think that's the right spot.
I appreciate it.
We talked about IDs and security.
Sure.
So the ID for medical, if somebody doesn't have an ID for medical, can they not buy medical?
Correct.
So it's like in a different spot at a store.
Correct. It's not a different spot in the store, although we do have, again, we prioritize our medical patients, so we will have registers that are dedicated to medical patients if there's that demand. I don't anticipate there being much queuing based on what we're seeing in the state of Connecticut. Especially this store isn't going to be open on the first day, which is when you really see the hoopla that's already died down in our experience. But yeah, the ID is the exact. At the reception desk, if you're a medical patient, you would just present your medical card and a state or federal issued ID. If you're a recreational or adult use customer, you're just going to present your state or federal issued ID. You're going to do that one more time at our point of sale checkout. And again, it just has to do with the taxation thing.
And on the security piece, I know you talked about your camera system. Physical security people, would that be, because we did see that in our visit, would that be like in a reception area?
So
You're not having?
Yeah, we're not planning to have physical security on site. We do it in some states. Some states it's required. The state of Connecticut does not require it. So that's not in our plans currently.
Massachusetts required? Is that why we've seen it?
Massachusetts does require it.
Gotcha. Thank you for that answer. The vault. So is that constructed differently, or is it like metal construction?
Yes.
Any concrete?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different guidelines. The guidelines include the floor, all walls, and ceiling. Ceiling is very important, especially when we're talking to first responders. That's always their concern, that someone's going to tunnel in through the ceiling. So it has to be a certain guideline for cement block. I believe it's 4 inches, and then the fire rating. Or you have to put security wire mesh in the drywall. So we adhere to those guidelines. The Department of Consumer Protection is, again, very, very specific on their wants for that. We have to provide pictures for them on how that's constructed.
Okay. And you have a very sophisticated security system. So if you were to lose power, any problems ever that you experienced? Do you need a generator at this facility?
Yep, battery backup for the camera and alarm monitoring system for approximately 8 hours. We do have a generator that will be planned for all the Connecticut sites, so that's something we're doing. They're cheap now, so we're just doing them everywhere.
Okay. Relative to the outside improvements, there's got to be a grease trap there, and by now it's got to be real nasty because it hasn't been used for 2 years. So I don't know if you guys looked into it, seen it. I didn't see any comments from WPC here. Are you going to try to get that out of there?
I'd have to check with our
condition. I don't know. I mean, just so we don't have any problems with any kind of backup.
Sure.
I would say it's an old grease trap. I'm sure there's one there, and it must be nasty.
Yeah, there's one there.
So I don't know if
I'll make a note for our
or we need to speak to staff about that, but I think that's very important, for health-wise and sanitary issues. You guys going to put a lot of money into that place.
Yeah, sure.
You don't want some old tacos, because it used to be Mexican there before, and
Yeah, we do.
hamburgers coming back through. I mean, I don't think especially your medical marijuana people aren't going to like that.
For sure, yeah. I'll check with and I'll make note for our construction team. I'd say, restaurants and old bank buildings are the most typical conversions for us if they're not a new build. So we do have a lot of experience in converting restaurants. The demo is much more robust in some of these older restaurants, but I'll make a note for the grease trap for sure.
Please do.
If I may.
Yeah, I still got a couple more. Go ahead.
Yeah, would you like to make that a condition?
I would.
The removal of the grease trap
Yeah,
would be
I would,
one of the
yeah.
site-specific conditions.
Sure, I'd like to make that
Okay,
condition.
so we'll make a note, to
Sure.
go. Yep.
Okay, let's see, I got a couple more. So you said you were leasing the property?
Yep.
Because I counted 4 LLCs in the
Yep.
notice here.
Yep.
So just help me with that a little bit.
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with the licensure with the state. So this is what's called an EJV license. So in the state of Connecticut, the existing medical dispensaries from the earlier round have the ability to open 2 additional locations. So what you had to do is you had to JV with a social equity applicant, which we've done. It is a Connecticut resident. So we are we are a member of the joint EJV license, which holds this license. Doesn't have to do with the real estate, and our portion of that flows up to the parent company, which is Verano, which is a publicly traded company.
Okay, so you're leasing it from the current mall owners?
Which are 3 of the LLCs.
3 of them, okay.
Yep.
So then you're familiar with the common area. I think it's a conveyance. It's a document that what responsibilities the mall has for the common areas, similar to a condominium.
Yeah.
So you're familiar with the document that they are responsible for certain things?
I mean, I would check with I don't personally know them right now offhand, but I would check with our real estate team, and I'm sure we're aware of those as part of our lease.
So you would probably think that entrance lighting to the mall would be required for your customers?
Sure. I mean, our location is going to be well lit, so I can assure you that.
And I think I got everything. Thank you for your answers.
Yeah, thank
Welcome
you.
to Enfield.
Yeah, great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Frank. They're working on the lighting.
No.
Mr. D'Antonio.
Sure, yeah. I just wanted to ask about the exterior modifications. They seem, to the building itself, seems very minimal. The one thing I didn't see explained in the narrative or the floor plan is that the north-facing facade has a door in the middle. There's no door in the floor plan, so I'm just hoping for a
Yeah, if it's
little
not
explanation.
Yeah, if
Is
it's
that
not on the
just-
floor plan, we'll probably just eliminate that.
Okay.
Yep.
So no plans for using that Elm Street facing
I don't believe so, no.
or anything. Okay.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now, because it's not the actual front of the building, it's a side building. A lot of the times, the exterior doors, unless we need it as emergency egress, we eliminate those because it's just another issue that we have to deal with that we'd like to eliminate.
Okay, that makes
Yep.
sense.
I can think of a few more.
Sure.
I think at this point, I'm going to we'll see if anyone in the audience wants to speak for or against this one. You guys, you don't have to move unless someone comes up.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak for or against this application? Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, that portion. Is there any more questions for the applicant? Does staff have anything they'd like to add?
We think we agree that this is probably the best location in town for this use, and they've met all the criteria.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any more questions from the commission? I know we have a couple things, site-specific things we wanted to add to this, so I guess we can do that during our discussion after. We do have 2 things we have to waive, but I'll take a motion now to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Chairman DeGray.
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Higley to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're not done yet. Yeah. You could have stayed there. Quick, before we start, Mr. Secretary, quick question for staff. Whenever you're done with your notes. Should we do separate the motion to approve required separation distances first and then go on to motion to approve PH 3057? Okay. Okay, so, I know it's a lot of reading for you, Mr. Secretary, but yeah.
I should note that it's a simple majority for the modification.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, a question for staff,
Yeah.
through the chair.
Sure.
But as far as the motion for the separation distances, what you have written here, is that the actual motion? That's not really a motion per se for the separation distances.
Should we just read that for the record and then just make a motion to approve?
Is that,
Okay.
that's acceptable, Matt?
Yeah, well, I think the wording as I worded it, it basically reflects what the language in the regulation requires. You're required to make certain findings based on certain criteria. So that's how I worded it. So it says, motion to approve the required separation distances pursuant to section, and then it's a motion, but encompassed within the motion, it's a finding.
Okay,
And you're voting on the finding.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah, we did. We did. So is there a motion to, you want to,
Yeah,
I'll read it if you want.
Yeah, there's also, excuse me, but
Yep.
there's also, there's two conditions.
Yeah, we can do that when we do the motion to approve.
Okay, all right.
That's why I asked him, we're going to do the first thing first.
Okay, very good.
Yep,
Sorry.
it's okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the required separation distances pursuant to Section 8.200.5. As stated, the commission determines that the request for separation distances and modifications meets the criteria of Section 8.200.5, and in addition, based on the criteria in Section 8.200.5, the commission makes affirmative finding that the requested separation distances modifications comply with the requirements of Section 8.200.5(b).
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is there a second?
So moved.
Seconded by Commissioner Alamo. Any discussion on this approval? Seeing none, we'll call the roll on that one, if you don't mind, Mr. Secretary.
Lou Fiore,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Virginia Higley,
4.
Francis Alamo,
4.
Kiran Majmudar,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Okay, now we did have, that's approved unanimously. We did have 2 additional conditions that we liked added to this site-specific conditions. One we wanted to add, one we wanted to change the wording just slightly. So if you can go to the site-specific conditions, on number 10 where it says state-mandated EV stalls, I think we just want to put in there, if required, state-mandated EV stalls shall be provided. Does that satisfy what you're looking for?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, if I may, on that, I've pulled out Public Act number 22-25, which is what we're talking about, and as Matt had stated, effective January 1, 2023, for non-state facilities, the act requires that any new commercial or multifamily residential buildings constructed on or after January 1, 2023 with 30 or more parking spaces installed, 10% of its spaces to be EV charging stations. So I believe that they're not required based upon that.
No.
It's got to be a new build, as you had said.
So how about if I make a different suggestion then? For item 10, we're going to change item 10 totally, since we don't need to have item 10 at all, but we're going to substitute it with one of the site conditions is that the current grease trap will be removed.
Yes. Yeah.
So item 10 for site-specific conditions will not have any reference to EV stalls at all. It'll be the current installed grease trap will be removed as one of the site conditions. Right?
It'll remain 31 conditions.
It remains 31. So since I talked about it, I guess I shouldn't do as the chairman making that motion to change that. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Limo. All those in favor of changing site-specific 10?
Yep.
Let's show that it was unanimous that we've changed the wording in site-specific 10 totally. Sorry about that, gentlemen. Okay, seeing that?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3057, application for a site plan for special permit to renovate and occupy an existing retail building for hybrid marijuana use at Lot 90C Elm Street, former Outback Steakhouse, and including a waiver required for the site plan requirements per section 9.10.2C of the regulations. Willowbrook Enfield LLC, DBA Zen Leaf Enfield, applicant, Enfield Square Realty, Enfield CH LLC, and Enfield Nasom LLC owners, Alan Curto, Esquire, applicant's representative, map 43, lot 27, BR zone, per the reference plans, reports, and application listed herein, and with the following 31 conditions, as previously stated and modified, and conditions of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Vice Chairman DeGray. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Lou Fiore.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Virginia Higley.
4.
Francis Alaimo.
4.
Kiran Majmudar.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Let the record show unanimous decision. Your application has been granted. Good luck, gentlemen, with your project. I just had one quick question before you leave. Do you have a targeted open date?
It'll depend on building permits, typically 14 to 16 weeks.
Okay, well, thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Enfield.
Thank you.
Moving on, whenever the Secretary's ready to PH 3059.
Yep. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings at the regular meeting on Thursday, March 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers at 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing number 3059, 29 Moody Road, application to construct a multi-use commercial building, 29 Moody Road, LLC, applicant, owner, map 75, lot 35, I-1 zone.
Thank you. Is the applicant representatives here?
Yes, we are.
Identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Kuhn, professional engineer with J.R. Russo and Associates. And with me here is Adam Oliveri of 29 Moody Road LLC, as well as Chris and Everett Skinner in the audience behind me. So we're here for an application for site plan and special permit. The site is located at 29 Moody Road.
I don't think, is the mic on? Yeah,
Is it not close enough?
yeah. Thank you.
This lot consists of 4.7 acres, which are zoned industrial. The site plan, which I assume you're looking at on the screen in front of me, the Moody Road is on the right-hand side of the screen, which is to the south, and the site is abutted by all industrial zones, or all industrial zoning, so everything's zoned industrial. Across this Moody Road to the south is the DPW garage. To the west is the commercial building, or I'm sorry, is industrial condominiums. Actually, right up in front of the street, or in front of the site, we kind of wrap around 31 Moody Road, which is a commercial building. There's undeveloped land to the north, as well as the freshwater brook off to the north, and there is a residential house to our east, which is located up by the street adjacent to the existing building at 31 Moody Road. The site is currently undeveloped. However, it was formerly mined for sand. And as a result, there are not only the wetlands at the rear of the property, which are associated with freshwater brook, but there's other man-made wetlands that are on the property, most of them on the northern end and the northwestern side of the property. What is being proposed is a 19,800 square foot building, which is proposed to have the capacity to have up to 11 tenant spaces. There will be a single curb cut off of Moody Road. We did provide a sightline demonstration plans to the town engineer demonstrating that we do have the appropriate and required sight lines in both directions at our driveway location. The drive will come into a parking lot on the west side of the building. There will be overhead doors as well as man doors on the west side of the building. And then there are two fire lanes at both ends of the building, on the north side and the south side, which were a requirement from the fire marshal. The building will be serviced by the available public water, sewer, and natural gas that is currently available in the street. And it'll also be served by a new on-site stormwater management basin, which will consist of a series of catch basins and piping to collect and divert all the runoff from the impervious surfaces to a new infiltration basin located on the north end of the site, and which is actually shown in yellow on the site plan. That infiltration basin has been designed in accordance with the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual to provide the required treatment, groundwater recharge, and peak flow attenuation so that there's no increase in peak runoff from the site. The drainage report was prepared and submitted and has been reviewed and approved by the assistant town engineer. The purple areas on the plan are mitigation areas for wetland disturbance. There is a little bit of wetland disturbance at the very north end of our parking lot. There's a finger of wetland that comes up in that area, which we will be filling. And in order to mitigate that, we have not only wetland creation areas, we are also enhancing an existing wetland and providing an upland enhancement area as well. And we did go through the Wetland Commission and receive their approval back in early February. At the north end of the parking lot, you will see there is a dumpster pad which will serve the tenants of the building. The dumpster will be on a concrete pad surrounded by a fence with privacy slats for screening. Due to the grade change at the site, there are also two retaining walls which are proposed, one to the north of the building at the edge of the fire lane, and another one at the northwest corner of the parking lot. And these are being proposed to minimize the amount of wetland disturbance that we have, so we don't have to grade further into the wetlands. Site lighting will be provided by a series of 6 pole-mounted fixtures, as well as 11 building-mounted lights. These will all be LED full cutoff fixtures, and we did provide a photometric plan which demonstrated that there's no light spillover across our property lines. And with regard to landscaping, we're providing the required parking lot landscaping. There's some ornamental trees and landscape islands within our parking lot to the west of the building. We're providing our standard erosion and sediment controls, the anti-tracking pad, sediment barriers, and the like. I did submit architectural plans. You probably have them in front of you. I could pull them up on the screen if you wish, or if you have questions about them, we can do that later. But there will be an attractive stone veneer at the base of the building. Bless you. Above that, there's metal siding and a metal roof. However, above each door, there will be a timber frame, eyebrow over the man doors. That's kind of an attractive architectural feature on the west side of the building. For our parking calculation, currently we have no tenants under contract. And we did provide a list of uses which we wish to include as potential tenants. That list includes a light manufacturing and assembly, including repairs, but which does not require the use of dangerous or noxious chemicals or processes. So that's a manufacturing use. Warehousing and storage, including wholesale warehousing and distribution, packaging and distribution of goods not including toxic, hazardous, and combustible materials. And our main target goal is actually storage service and workshop associated with building, landscaping, and special trade contractors. For the parking calculation, we used the industrial use, which is essentially the worst case out of all those uses that were listed. Industrial requires 1 space per 750 square feet versus warehouse, which is 1 per 1,250. And actually, if you looked at the contractor spaces, the way these buildings are set up, there's a little office and then storage. So if you split that up and do the parking calculation based on split up of office and storage, it's even less. So based on the industrial, we end up with a requirement of 27 spaces, and we're proposing 29 in order to meet that requirement. Okay. On the list of potential uses, we also provided a list of restrictions because for a couple of reasons. One is we do know that this site is located in the aquifer protection zone, and therefore we wanted to restrict any of the uses that would be regulated by that requirement. So we are restricting this. One thing is there shall be no outdoor storage permitted on the premises. The second is there shall be no automotive repair service uses. There shall be no retail sales on the property. There shall be no storage of commercial vehicles, and the facility shall not be open to the general public. I just want to clarify number 4, which is there shall be no storage of commercial vehicles. The intent of this is to prevent somebody from leasing space to store their dump truck in our building. It is not meant to prohibit a trade, an electrician or somebody from parking their commercial vehicle in our parking lot overnight, just to make that clear. So there is some differentiation there. Of the uses that we've provided and listed, all of them are approved or permitted with an approved site plan, with the exception of the storage service and workshop associated with building landscaping and special trade contractors. These appear to fall under the special permit use that you have in your use table for construction offices and facilities. And because it is, and this is the reason why we are requesting the special permit. Again, there's no tenants under contract, but we would like to have the flexibility to allow any of the permitted uses with site plan and this one special use permit, which covers construction offices and facilities. Now, I've received Matt's memo, which I'm sure you have as well, and we understand that he questions whether or not a special permit can be issued for this site without knowing what the specific tenants are going to be. And as I mentioned, the intent's to market the building really to the trades for their use for office storage, workshop, what have you. And unfortunately, there's no specific use in your use table that specifically covers that, so it seems like the construction offices and facilities is the most appropriate, as trades are typically associated with construction. So I expect, however, that the use, when this was developed, it was probably initially intended for construction uses such as a larger construction company like Spazzarini that has equipment, does outdoor storage, those sorts of construction companies. That's not what we're proposing here. All of our stuff will be indoors, similar to a manufacturing use, which is a permitted use with a site plan approval. There will be no outdoor storage, which is really one of the main concerns when you get into the larger types of construction facilities. So even not knowing the specific use, by restricting the outdoor storage and by not allowing retail, things like that, regardless of what trade it is, whether it's ABC Electric or XYZ Plumbing or what have you, we feel that we still meet the special permit criteria for the construction operations. And I'll go through those because it's section 630.5 of your regulation, and they're listed as follows. A, the primary use is contained within and completely enclosed building. And we have that, regardless of what the specific use is. B, all repair and all operations other than parking and storage shall occur within a completely enclosed building. We are that as well. The outside storage area is accessory to the primary use. Well, in our case, no outside storage is allowed, so that one would not apply. A maximum of 6 construction vehicles may be parked in the outside storage area. Again, no outside storage, so that one we don't have to worry about either. And E, the outside storage area shall be buffered from the street view and from abutting properties by means of a solid fence, wall, or B buffer yard, as described in section 10.2. Again, no outside storage, so we meet that one as well. And then all other applicable standards found in Article 6, which I believe is, we meet all the ones that apply as there as well. The other special use permit criteria are found in section 9.20.2, which are your general special permit criteria. And the ones that are in addition to the specific ones for the construction include 2, that all proposed structures, equipment, and materials shall be readily accessible for fire and police protection. And we do provide that. We've modified our site plan in accordance with the fire marshal's comments in order so that he's satisfied with his access around our building. The third one, that the proposed use shall be of such location, size, and character that in general it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is proposed to be situated and will not be detrimental to the orderly development of adjacent properties. We believe we meet that as well. Our building is very similar to the industrial condos which are located to our west. And we are all in the industrial zone. So we believe we are certainly in character with the neighborhood with what we are proposing out here. And then the other special permit criteria actually apply when you're directly adjacent to a residential district. So in our case, we're surrounded by industrial, and those don't apply as well. So those are your special permit criteria, and based on those, we believe that we can meet the special permit criteria without necessarily knowing what specific trade we're going to have going in our building. And I know that we don't have a motion prepared this evening, and that one of the main reasons we still wanted to come here was to get your guidance on this, because we really feel strongly that we can get a special permit for the construction uses in the whole building, not knowing the specific tenants. And obviously, it's your decision, so we want to know what your thoughts on this are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your last honest comments there about seeking our opinion. I guess as chairman, should I start first on this one, I guess? I mean, is that my prerogative? Oh, gee, thanks a lot, everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, my point on this is, I think at this point, and you're right, there is no motion to approve or anything for us tonight. You wanted to come for us to get our views on this. I guess to my opinion, I think what you're asking for me, to my standpoint, is basically what I would classify as precedent setting. I'm just going to read a couple things that I'm going to borrow from staff, because I instead of coming up with my own words, and just basically as one. A special permit application is necessarily specific and fact-based. In order to meet its responsibility under statute and regulations, the Commission needs to have more than just general information. The Commission must evaluate the specific details of the proposed use. This typically includes employee loads at peak hours, parking requirements, hours of operation, information concerning noise, refuse, management of materials, used in the business, trip generation, the type of equipment, vehicles used in the business, as well as other scope and operational attributes. And basically, with a global special use permit that you're asking us to probably grant you down the road doesn't basically meet any of those criteria. Let me continue on. It is not the planning and zoning's responsibility to identify any and all potentially applicable use or scope parameters, but rather to review applications made to the Commission for compliance and applicable regulations. I mean, it's pretty clear. That's basically what our role is. And basically, you're asking us to potentially grant you a special use or a global, whatever you want to classify it, without a specific use. Generalized use, and you've been very specific about giving us generalizations. I want to thank you for that. But at least my opinion, I want to hear some other commissioners and maybe ask you some questions. There wasn't anything specific. And again, it's not about the building. It's about the use of the building, and you're asking for the special use permit without any particular information. So, okay,
If I
I'm
could
sure you're going to
just
respond back. We're
respond.
probably going to be going on for an hour here.
Right. Well, your regulation isn't specific either. The special use permit says construction uses and facilities, construction offices and facilities. So that doesn't require specifics. And we believe that the different factors that allow us to meet the special use permit criteria are met simply with the general, the single. We're not asking for necessarily a global special permit. We're asking for the one special permit for that one construction offices and services use per your regulation. And those particular uses, with the restrictions that we are imposing on our site.
How can you do that when you have 11 tenant spaces? And again, I have no problem with the building. So
Right.
Your scope and what you're doing here. But again, to my opinion, it's global because you have 11 tenant spaces. It's not like you had one tenant space and you were looking for still someone to rent that and they're going to be doing construction business. You have 11 tenant spaces. Are they all going to be construction businesses? No. So we have no idea. We have no idea what the traffic impact is going to be on that road. We have no idea what a lot of things are going to be on that with an open-ended special use permit. But I'm going to give up my time for hopefully some other comments from some other commissioners at this point, because they are looking for some guidance on what we want to do here and some fairness to them. Jim? Commissioner Higley?
I believe it's too vague for what we require. Even staff says it's too vague. It's a blanket approval, and it's an aquifer, and I think that it would be better to get more specific. Once a tenant comes for a rental, and I'm not saying anything would be wrong, but I'm just saying that if I were a landlord and somebody came to me and wanted to rent it, I probably would allow it and worry about that other stuff later. So I don't feel comfortable giving a blanket approval.
Thank you.
Just so I'm clear.
Commissioner Lyon, we
Oh, I'm sorry.
recognize? That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Just wanna
Just
recognize-
so I'm clear and people at home are clear, because we've had a lot of discussions in this room over the last few years. So this is a special use permit, and so we need to know, but we approved 2 million square feet of warehousing that we didn't know what was going in. So the difference is that wasn't a special use permit.
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
That was a
Because I
site
just
plan
want to
review.
make sure that.
That was a site plan review.
Because I'm sure, 2 million square feet of warehousing, but that was, right. So, I mean, that came up a lot.
Yep.
Why are we approving it? Because we don't know what's going in it.
Yep.
But this is different.
Yep.
I want to make sure that's clear. So I see what you're trying to do there. Would you be opposed? I'm sure you wouldn't if one tenant wanted to take the whole space?
Not at all.
Right. Because you're planning on chopping these up as you get tenants.
Yes, I assume that
So,
Adam could speak
Yeah, if I
more on
could,
that.
Yeah, go ahead,
is this
please.
still on here? So my name's Adam Oliveri. I purchased this property about 5 years ago. I operate a pharmacy out of 31 Moody Road, which is the building in the front there, and I've had this dream of doing this project for a long time. I've been working closely with the town through COVID, and we met with all the department heads to see if anybody had any concerns, because this is obviously a big investment for my partners and I. When we met with all the department heads, it seemed like not only did the department heads like the idea, but they thought that this was really needed here in the town. If we are not granted this special use, it's going to be make it more difficult for us to market this property to potential leasers to come in. I see that you don't want to set precedents here. But if I came in front of you, if I'm hearing you correctly, if I came in front of you and said, hey, this is just going to be one tenant, then you would be okay with it. It's because there's 11 potential tenants that is causing an issue, or?
Well, that's one of the issues. I'm just speaking for myself. That's just
the floor.
no. That's one of my issues. I mean, 11 makes it much more difficult because you could have 11 different uses.
Yeah, it's just hard for us to say who's going to be interested in it. And
I
it's sort of a chicken and egg here because I have to make a huge investment in the town. I want to do that. I think this is a perfect fit for the town. It's obviously going to help your tax roll, and I want to bring some businesses in here. We've loosely marketed it to some of the trades guys, so we feel like it'll fill pretty quickly. I sit on a local banks board and we financed a similar property across town. And before that property was even finished being built, the tenants were all in place. I'm not sure how you handled it in the last time because there was a similar project done 3-4 years ago. I think it's on Peerless Way or here in Enfield.
Yes, and that's been an issue.
And
Sorry. I'm sorry you had to bring that one up.
yeah, so
Don't.
that's what they said all along.
Yeah,
They
don't use
do
that as a model, please.
Yeah, no, I don't want to use it as a model. What I wanted to say is that we were trying to do everything ahead of time, and that's why we came to you. We want to put everything on the table here. That everybody jokes around about that with us as we go along the way, and so we feel like we did everything right. Met with everybody. This seems a bit like a curveball to me a little bit, but I'm not used to the process as much as you guys are. I'm not sure what you'd like us to do to try to solve the problem, but I think we made our case here.
Commissioner Limo?
Yeah, so thank you. So you wouldn't be, back to my question, you wouldn't be opposed to one person renting the whole place out, right?
No, that would be ideal
Be
for me.
ideal.
That
So
would keep
what
the
you're
building
planning-
costs down.
So what you're planning, and you're asking us tonight, so we approve this, you're going to just build the shell and
Correct.
then wait to box it out, right? To chop it
Correct.
up, if we approved it,
Correct.
as you got tenants. And like you were saying, to the west of you is exactly what you're talking about that's been there for many years. The little, right?
Correct.
I don't know the history on that. Too long ago for me, even me, too long ago. Can we put in, if we got an approval next time around, specific conditions to mirror the list of uses? And then as they pulled building permits to box out the space, they would have to, you go to the building department, you got the building up, you go to the building department, we have business X. He looks at the conditions of approval. If it's not part of what's supposed to be in there, building X isn't getting approved. Or space X, we'll call it. Use X.
Right.
Too many X's. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'd be perfectly happy with that.
So
And
specific conditions of approval with
specific-
what's supposed to be in that area.
We'll say that for my initial response as your chairman to you would be, again, remember, everything we do, especially when it comes to special use permits and regulation change, is precedent setting. If we went down that route, you're opening up that route. You're opening up that route when we're long gone after this commission.
I'm just trying to find a way where we
I'm
could
trying to
put
protect
some-
our regulations
Right.
and what we need to do. And no offense, don't take this personally. It's not so much about the applicant here. Okay, this is their problem, their issue.
Right. And not just for them, even for people who come after them.
But everything.
I'm trying to find a way
everything-
where somebody can do this.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, at least we know where you're coming from.
Right.
Are you set?
Yeah.
Commissioner Petronella.
Yeah, is the issue really the fact that the applicant would like this to be specific to construction operations and construction contractors' uses and so forth? Meaning, if this was just an application for a multi-tenant industrial building, does that soften it, Matt? What's real? I'm trying to understand what the issue is.
Well, the issue is the regulations, to be perfectly honest with you. The regulator, and I think Tim alluded to it, and I think he was absolutely correct in doing so. The fact is that you have a description of a use in your regulations, and around that, there has been developed a process and an interpretation of what that use means. And then in terms of permitting, how the office has approached it. And I think they've done the best that they can under the circumstances without fixing the regs, so to speak. So, to answer your question specifically, you can apply for a site plan application, you can apply for a special permit application, you can apply for a combined special permit and site plan application, but what you're describing to me would seem to be a site plan application. And one of the options that we did offer was take away the special permit uses out of this application, withdraw that component, and we'll strip it down to a site plan application. At least you'll have that approval. Those are fairly pro forma in terms of the process for occupancy through Rick and others. And they preferred not to do that. They made the point, and we're sensitive to this point. We're certainly sympathetic to it, but you know, the issues for you are more fundamental. The fact that they can't market the property the way that they want to market the property is not your direct concern. Your concern is orderly development. Your concern is the plan of conservation and development. Your concerns are different. Now, does that mean that you can't be sensitive to or find a way to potentially accommodate the desire for that flexibility? No, of course not. You can, but your regs aren't set up and structured to do what they want to do. It's just a fact. So that's why we're here, because I don't feel comfortable endorsing what they're proposing, knowing that there are probably 40 or 50 other businesses and property owners that are out there in the community watching and paying close attention, who are going to walk into the office the following week and say, hey, I was watching the meeting the other night on TV, and I understand you just approved such and such for so-and-so. I own this building that has 5 units in it, and I'd like to have a global permit. I don't really have tenants yet, but it's really going to help me market it. So would you please, hey, you know, let's, and so you know what I'm saying? So we're in a difficult position. It's not that we don't want to accommodate businesses. Obviously, we get paid through the taxpayers, to be perfectly frank, so it's not a bad thing that there's, you know, growth in the market. And these do serve a purpose. These buildings do serve an important purpose for small contractors and small businesses. So we're completely sympathetic to all that. It's just your regs are not set up to really accommodate this.
I appreciate that. I understand yeah, I agree with setting precedent is not really good, but you know, it was offered, and staff offered that a site plan application for an industrial building would have been probably the way to go, and each individual tenant or use would come before us for an approval, and I guess that's your decision how you wanted to present this application, but that's the way that it probably should have gone. But you're asking us again to kind of open up a can of worms and Pandora's box to open us up and set up a precedent. So it is a little bit difficult, but a site plan application again would have probably been the way to go.
Well, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Sichter, thank you for putting it.
Yeah. Well, just before Chris gets on, there is still a site plan application in front of you. So there's an application for site plan and special permit. The special permit is specifically for the construction facilities and uses. Yeah, with site plan approval, I believe we would be able to let any manufacturing use, regardless of what it is, go in there, because that's a use that's allowed with site plan approval. Unfortunately, trades isn't the same way. Unfortunate, because really I could think of a number of manufacturing operations which would be much more disruptive than what trades could be. So,
yeah, Christopher Skinner, thanks for taking this in front of you tonight. Just one note I want to bring up is for the investment in this property, there's no way to market a industrial building if every single tenant, and we have excluded the ones, you know, the detrimental ones, the repair shops and the body shops, things like that. There's no absolute way to market an industrial building if every single tenant has to come before this board before you can rent to it. it's time and money, right? We saw what happens with COVID. Meetings get pushed off, things happen. There's no tenant that's going to spend 2 or 3 months' time and money to come before the board before they even know if we can rent the building. So in our eyes, we feel we meet the criteria, and I wouldn't, the point that gets me is we're not asking for a global approval on everything because we have restrictions. I think more what we're saying is we feel that the construction use fits in with the use that's already permitted, like a plumber or electrician. Meanwhile, we could open it up to manufacturing and no one would have a say what goes in there. So I think that we've put our right foot forward the entire time from start to finish, where we could have, there's a lot of other companies that probably would just go in for the industrial use and put in whatever they want, but we're just trying to be forthcoming with the town. And I guess the point I just want to make is this 11-unit building, which may not be 11 units, is not marketable if every single tenant has to come in front of the board.
Mr. Chairman, can I please clarify?
Yes,
Because I think
please.
it's a very important point.
Yep.
If that's the view that you have, it's incorrect. And it gets down to the fact that the commission made a legislative determination, not this group of people, but maybe some of them were there, that certain uses would be allowed as of right. Those uses are allowed by site plan. Those uses do not have to come back individually for this commission's approval. They decided that. That's their prerogative. You're entitled to your opinion. I have my opinion. Lori has her opinion. But this is the legislative body that makes that decision. They decided that contractor offices, or however we term it, are going to require a special permit. A special permit use is different than a site plan use. So anything that requires a site plan, if you get your site plan approval, uses that are allowed as of right are administrative. You don't have to come back here to get approval for those. Special permits are different. Special permit uses are different. That's a legislative determination that this body made, and if they want to change that, they can change it, but they're going to change their regs, and there's a public process for changing their regs, defined in the law.
Understood.
So I just wanted to make it clear that no one is saying that you have to come back for an individual approval for every single occupancy to this board. That's not true.
I understand that, but the name of the business is Trade Space. So how are we going to market this to tradespeople if they are not allowed? Because right now they're not.
They're allowed by special permit.
By special permit, and that's why we're here
I just have
today.
one idea.
Sure.
Everett Skinner for the record. So just one thought here that may be helpful to you guys. So I think you're kind of viewing this as, we're asking for a global blanket permit for this special contract use. So how about this? What do you guys think about, as part of the approval, giving certain conditions what you would approve for these contractors, and we'll make it very specific. How about we do this? We would approve Bill the plumber. We would approve Paul the electrician. We would approve Bob the builder.
Yeah,
I think that's it. That's it. Honestly, would you guys care if any three of those are in the building? That's really what we're asking. So how about we just get more specific to make, we don't want a global permit for any contractor in the world. We would like to have let's make it very specific. Plumbers, electricians, and carpenters. HVAC. But let's make it specific. We can name 5 and we'll be happy, because that's all we really want. So just a thought that maybe we could keep those as conditions, so now you're approving very specific trades and not, getting caught up, well, maybe, we left it too vague. We can make it really simple, I think, by doing that.
That seems like a good compromise.
That's what I suggest.
Any other questions from the commissioners here at this point? Commissioner D'Antonio, do you have anything on that?
I mean, I do definitely feel like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place here, because what they're asking for is not at all unreasonable, but it is our regulations that are stiflingly vague and undefined. I'm to be honest, I am kind of definitely very conflicted here.
Okay. Mr. Majidar, anything you want to add?
Yes, I would like the staff's comments or interpretation, what they just suggested, that in the category of construction office, you could limit it to so many trades. Would that in any
So-
way?
I think that the problem with that is that with each special use permit, we look at conditions.
Right.
And those conditions, look at how many employees this one contractor might have. So are they bringing in 6 trucks every day? Do they have 20 employees? Do they have 1 employee? Do they have any employees? So just simple things like that are the things that we're concerned about. Because if there's only 2 spaces per, I think that's right, 2 spaces per unit. What if they bring in 6 employees to come and work in their little shop? So that's where the special use permit really comes in. So, and I agree. I understand the marketing end of things, and I totally get what you're getting at. Unfortunately, I think sometimes we are tied by our own regulations, which are not always great. I'm not sure where else to go with this.
This model works in other communities too, so I don't know, maybe we have to go back to the drawing board and see how it's working in the other surrounding towns, but, I've been.
Regulations are probably different.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure that's the answer. You probably don't have to go far.
No, I understand that, but I want to bring it here. I've been doing business here in Enfield and been an owner for almost 15 years now. And like I said, this is definitely something that all of your department heads gave us our blessing on and thought was really needed. In fact, one of the first things that was said to us was that we're having an issue with some of our trades guys working out of their homes. So this is great. They were very excited to hear that this would give those folks an opportunity to do their trade in the correct place. In fact, one of the gentleman said, we'll become a referral source, because it was so needed. So I think there's a way, I'm hoping we can find some common ground here. I don't want to take this project to another town. I think this is the right place for it.
Lori?
What towns have this this type of use? And can you tell me someplace that we could look at a regulation?
Yeah, Ellington, Connecticut is going to be trade space too.
Any others?
That's okay, Vinny.
We'd be going over state lines. There's a project very similar
fine,
to this in
Commissioner.
Chicopee, Mass. that just was announced.
You said that there was a number of towns that,
Well,
that's
we're
what I was
gonna go.
asking.
Yeah, this model's big. This model's getting big all over the Northeast. I've seen it in Maine. I've seen it in Mass, and they're very successful.
But not Connecticut,
but-
other than Ellington.
Yeah.
In different states.
Yeah. Every state's a little bit different
Every
here.
state's
but-
different. It
Yeah.
was
No,
a lot different.
we just got one approved last week in Vernon.
Okay,
A
so there's another one in Vernon.
multi-tenant
Okay,
with unknown tenants.
okay. Was it a special use permit?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Lori and Matt have that information. So based on this, and there doesn't seem to be any more questions here at this point from the commission, we have 2 options at this point, or maybe 3. We could table it, I guess. Or basically, we get right back to the point. We're not going to be having another regular meeting until April 13th. So, we could continue this to them, but it has to be with your consent. Or basically, you can withdraw, or we can vote to deny tonight. Those are kind of like our options here. Before, let me think about it. Let me do what I have to do from a public hearing standpoint.
Okay.
What you guys think about it. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against this application or comment on it? I'll ask one more time since I'm looking at not many people in the audience. All right, so that's been.
I could approve this
Is there any more questions from you guys for now?
and deny it.
Do you do, Vinny? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, go let these guys collect themselves.
I think that makes sense.
Everybody else all done?
Did you guys hear that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
there's an option that where, if you wanted, you could close the public hearing tonight. You have 65 days from the close of the public hearing to make a decision. You could come back at the April 13 meeting, deliberate. At that time, you could choose how you wanted to go forward. You could approve the site plan, deny the special permit part, but we would have an opportunity to write a motion for you. That's just another option to consider.
Yep.
Or table,
Or table, yeah.
where we could, because if you close the public hearing, we can't give you any more information.
Right, right. That's the other option, yeah. I know Commissioner Grillo had a question, but these guys are still talking to themselves if you want. Commissioner Grillo had a question.
Yes. Oh, sorry about that. First of all, thank you. I see the building. You have great builders. It's going to be a great building. It's definitely broken up and designed for 11 sections, the way it's drawn up. You got to split. That's a big building, so you got to split it somewhere, even if you deduct it. We definitely don't want you to go somewhere else. We definitely want you here. The problem is, we're not, I don't feel, as a commissioner, to sit here in the time that it would take us to change our regulations for just one, because it's not for just one. There's a lot of you. Once again, I love the building. I love the idea, but there's got to be, it's got to be, I know you don't want to have a tenant come in, everybody, but I'll tell you what, I rent, I had to go through the same thing. I wanted the building, I wanted that spot. I went through this whole thing, and I got it. But I'm just saying, we need, I feel, we need to know who's going in these buildings. I'm not a voter tonight, I understand, but that's my feeling. It's our regulations, and I don't feel, it would take us just as long to change them than for you guys to work this out. And I truly, believe me, would rather see you guys stay here. But the threat of going somewhere else just won't cut it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grillo.
Could we have one more minute, and then I'd like to make a suggestion?
Sure, please, go ahead. We probably all want to stretch a little bit anyways. I
You have a
really,
site plan review.
I really don't know what, well, we have to talk about what you guys want to do. We're going to have to talk about what you, I will withdraw it. Gentlemen? Okay, gentlemen? Well,
Shall we wait for Frank?
yeah.
No.
I think that,
Not at all.
thank you so much.
Not at all.
He said he approved. He whispered it to me.
There we go. We're giving Frank a second here. If not, I'll start in a second. I'm trying to be a gentleman here, give him 30 seconds. But, all right, go ahead, gentlemen. We can't wait for that, please.
All right.
Yeah.
So, based on what we've heard this evening, it sounds like the chances of us getting the special permit approved are quite slim. So, I believe that one of Matt's suggestions in his memo, that potentially we could withdraw the special application and still have you vote on the site plan. And if we did that, that would give us the ability to start construction of the building, build the building. It would allow for any site plan approved use to lease any of our space, and then that would leave the individual trades or anything that fell under the special permit criteria to have to come in on their own at a later date.
Is that we can't really do that tonight because we don't really.
We don't have a motion, right,
Yeah,
but
we
if
don't have a
that's-
motion, yes.
Yeah.
And we're not meeting until April 13th. So would you be willing to do the continuance till April 13th with that condition, this site plan?
Yes. We don't really have a choice.
Tim, can we add, so is there a way to start site work before that, or no?
No.
No,
No.
So regardless, we have to wait till April.
yes.
Yes.
And
But
that-
I
and that
think-
is- and that is- I'm making a presumption here that everyone's going to agree to
Yeah.
the site plan. but I'm
There's no risk for you.
assuming that your work is good, his work is good, so. Does that sound,
So,
yeah,
yes, we would grant the continuance.
okay, let me just make sure staff is on board with what we're doing here. Matt, you see Matt's,
Shaking his head.
So the special permit uses are withdrawn.
Yeah.
So it's just a pure site plan, and they granted if an extension is necessary, I'm not even sure an extension is necessary, but it's good to have it on the record anyway.
Yeah.
So let's get to the 413 meeting, and we'll have a draft motion for you for the site plan. I'll work with you, Tim, to clean up some of the little nits that in terms of how the use.
Yep.
Described.
Sure.
So I'll have something for you for the motion.
okay. So since they're withdrawing, do we have to do anything on tonight's agenda other than just recognize that they've withdrawn and close this public hearing?
I would just recognize the withdrawal
Yeah.
on the record.
Yeah.
On the record, and then just go to
Just
for special use permit.
Yes, yes, okay.
And would you also need to continue the site plan application?
You didn't withdraw that, so
Right.
that's going to be continued.
Yeah.
With your
With our,
acceptance.
and if an extension's required,
So
it's
what we'll
granted.
do is we'll, give me a second, we will close the public hearing. We'll recognize that they've withdrawn their special use permit application. We'll close the public hearing, and then we'll table the site plan application
But the other ones.
to the 13th. So I want to make for the record that the applicant has withdrawn their special use permit request. Now I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Higley, seconded by Commissioner DeGray to close this public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Let the record show it was unanimous. I'll also take a motion to table the site plan review for this application until the April 13th meeting. Motion made by Commissioner Majmadar, seconded by Commissioner D'Antonio to table the site plan portion of this application until April 13th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record show it was unanimous for that. I think legally, we've covered everything.
I believe so.
We will see you on April 13th, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would hold on to the paperwork, everybody.
Hold on to your
I would hold on to the paperwork on this, some of it we might use again. Very good discussion, everyone. Thank you on that one. That was good.
Tough one.
Yeah, that was a tough one. It is.
Trying to help them.
Yeah, tough one. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Secretary, for Mr. LaCory's application.
A little bit, I just bring your mic up here a second. Bring your mic. This is why I said about being clear to people. How we did the warehouses. They were going crazy about that.
That was a good idea. Yeah. Thank you for that.
The,
Yeah.
this public hearing,
This old public hearing, we have to reopen it. It's for PH 3054.
so, okay, so.
Yeah, that's right. We don't have to read it. Yep. Just make a motion to reopen the hearing? Yeah. We don't have to read it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we're going to make a motion to reopen public hearing number 3054, 117 North Street, application for home occupation excavation permit and contractor storage yard. Joseph LaCory, applicant owner, map 93 lot 15 plus map 100 lot 6, I-1 zone.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner, Vice Chairman DeGrado. Reopen this public hearing, page 3054. Is the applicant representative here again? Good to see you. For the record, please.
Thank you. For the record, Wes Wentworth, Wentworth Civil Engineers, Lebanon, Connecticut. Here on behalf of the owner and applicant, Joe Lepori of Lepori Sand and Gravel LLC. We left off because we were all a little, felt not quite informed and a little bit confused. I know that staff has prepared a new memo, and I was kind of directed what that is. I really don't have, it's kind of, I guess I'd like to hear from staff first, if that would be okay with the chair.
Do you have a copy?
I have a copy.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was just as to the thinking and how we're going to proceed.
Sure.
I think I understand.
Your mic's off.
I apologize.
Can you re-identify yourself?
Again, I didn't shut it off. For the record, Wes Wentworth, Wentworth Civil Engineers, Lebanon, Connecticut, professional engineer and soil scientist here on behalf of the owner and applicant. We left off, and I guess we're approaching this application a new way. If I would just ask if town staff could run through how that's going to be handled now. Maybe that would be the best place to start.
Sure. To staff. Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry, hi Wes. So I got the feeling from the commission at the last meeting that you wanted these two different uses separated out with different applications. So what I did was essentially treated this new staff memo based on the reclamation and excavation. So all of the comments in here are specifically geared towards excavation and reclamation and not about any of the business uses. So the site plan, for all intents and purposes, is perfectly fine, except one of the conditions I suggested is that they just take some striping and cross out the area for the business use. And then what you can do tonight is take action on the excavation and reclamation activities with conditions of approval that are specific to that use, and then make a motion to approve or deny the other business uses. So this is just for the recreation of the cropland, the getting rid of the mulch, the asphalt, all of those things. And it actually makes more sense because there's going to be bonds and requirements for each use. So that way they're kept separate with the conditions of approval.
If I could just continue on that. My understanding is as Lori described very well, what she is recommending you act on, that would require that the home office, the business construction use of the trucking, parking of trucks, parking of employees, and proposed processing of materials long-term on site, which would just be stump grinding, bringing in stumps, brush, organic matter to make topsoil and mulch products, would not be acted on in this motion and would require a new application.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to understand. I hope I'm hearing that that's not, that the commission doesn't want those things. Is it just different? I hope we're just not putting a cloak over this, that those are unwanted items, that we're just trying to process this in a more orderly way. Yeah.
I can't speak for the commission. I don't know how they're going to end up voting. I think the intent is to do it this way. Makes it much more sense for us. I'm certainly not going to indicate to you how that second vote is going to go, or any vote for that matter.
Understood. I apologize. I worded that incorrectly.
That's okay.
Therefore, we would move forward and we would have to reapply, and a new public hearing would be required, I believe, for the construction activity.
For the construction operations, yes.
Okay.
For the business.
For the business. So I would have just a few detailed questions because we're ready to submit that second application as soon as tomorrow, possibly.
We won't be having a meeting until April 13th.
Okay.
So you can submit
Well,
it tomorrow.
I wouldn't want other applications to come in, and because and people would be. I mean, new things could be coming in over the next 4 weeks, and then we would get bumped back if we don't.
No.
submit.
Yeah.
Correct.
Good.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I mean, you can make application and then you're in the queue for first up,
That would
theoretically.
be our intent. And so that would be a public hearing. One thing that was unclear was the long-term processing of materials on site. Under what section would that, we had been handling that as part of a construction yard operation. There were questions saying, should that be an excavation permit? It doesn't matter to me as representing the applicant. So I would just like to get that squared out ahead of time, so we're not talking about that on April 13th.
So it is my understanding that the only time that we allow something like that is with an excavation permit, but you're not, it's not typically a use that's permitted. So otherwise, so I'd have to look into that a little bit further because I was talking to our zoning enforcement officer about that. And he was showing me something that I think that.
Aren't there similar operations in town like that? I've been led to believe there's stump grinding processes.
Yeah, there is a stump grinding process, so yeah, that's what I have to figure out, what that application is for.
So we don't have an answer to that, so I'm probably not going to submit tomorrow
tonight.
then.
No.
Okay. And in that sense, would one application cover this next step? Again, I don't want to get into saying, I would just like to be told we need one application, two applications. We can submit 3 applications, we don't mind. I would just like the clarity on that.
You just need one application with all the different sections that you are falling under. So like there's the home occupation.
Yep.
There's the construction yard, and then there might be excavation with.
May or may not be.
Yeah.
Okay. Those were my only concerns or questions. Other than that, I'd gladly take any comments or questions. I understand the thought process, and it makes, I understand the theory behind it. So
Yeah, we try to do everything. It looked good at first to try to do everything all in one big bang, but then to try to separate it out, it just gets very confusing. And mistakes on both ends might happen. So this seems to be cleaner where even though we know it pushes you off about a month on one of the applications. Don't know if that's going to get approved or not, but it's...
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Let me go through. Any other questions for the applicant at this point? Lori?
Just for clarification, there are some site-specific conditions that have been added for just this activity, the excavation and reclamation, the hours of operation, to note that the business area is not part of this application on the final plans.
Well, can you help us through here for a little bit? Because I'm looking here.
Number 7 and 8, it starts with 7.
7 to 5, are restricted to 7 to 5. Yeah, that's what we have here. Yeah. No evacuation move shall take place on weekends or holidays. This will include any processing of materials. Okay.
Correct. Okay, and then, so the final plan submitted shall have the business operation area cross-hatched with the note stating not part of this application.
Yes.
Because it's just for the excavation.
Right. So that gets removed.
So, well, if we just cross it out, because it's not going to make any difference to the overall layout of this project.
Okay. So number 8 is it's gone. Okay.
It will have to be crossed out for the final plans. Yeah, the final plans.
He was crossing out number 8.
You're crossing number 8 out?
No.
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 No, it was crossed out.
Crossing out the use.
So the wood chip grinder may be used for the grinding of stumps on site only during the reclamation period. So at this time, that's the only time it's going to be permitted. With the next application, we'll see what happens with that. No other materials such as wood, stumps, concrete, asphalt, construction debris, etc., may be brought onto the site. The exception is stone and gravel specifically for the hauling business operation, which is confusing because that's not yet permitted, but through the courts, he's been able to continue to operate.
Yep.
A site restoration bond shall be required. All reclamation activity shall be completed and then within 1.5 years, 2 years. I think we were talking, Wes, you were referencing 1.5.
Yeah,
So-
1.5 would be more on our part. If you want to go 2 years, that's fine.
1.5 be okay?
18 months.
So
would be
1.5.
There you have that, that's 1.5 on that one?
18 months. We'll say
Number
18
12.
months.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a quarterly report detailing the amount of removed or processed material shall be required. And we can make that, annual or biannual, depending on what you think.
Quarterly.
But I think that we need some,
Yeah. Quarterly.
some records as to how much material is actually being removed, showing progress.
Yeah. So basically, there's still 28 conditions with the tongue-tied here, part of the application.
Yes.
Okay.
But
that-
again,
that
this
was
is
my
only
confusion.
for the excavation and reclamation.
Right. So basically, well, first, let me do this. We're going to get back to, I'm just going to do it just for, because I need to. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against this application? Anybody in the audience? Seeing none, that part is open. Done. Check it off the checklist. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this time. No, nothing more.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
A question for
Yep,
staff.
go ahead. Go ahead, Frank.
Just for staff or to the
Yeah,
chair?
yeah.
We voted as a committee 2 weeks ago on hours of operation. Is that relative to the other?
Yes, yeah, that was the other.
We voted on some, so it's not.
No, we didn't vote on anything like, we
We
tabled it.
did. We voted on hours of operation.
That was a different project.
No,
This
it-
project.
Was that
Yeah.
Right.
a motion to update?
No, so we're pulling the trucking part out? That's what I'm clear, because I'm reading hours of operation.
Yeah, you're looking, this is
Right,
different.
but we all voted on hours of operation.
That was the other
Last meeting.
application that we're not looking at tonight.
Yeah, I
That's
just
for
wanna
the
make sure.
business. Yeah, that's for the business.
That's-
This is just for the excavation to
So
finish.
just so I'm clear, so we voted hours of operation for the part that's being withdrawn.
That's right. That we're denying.
We're denying.
We're denying it.
That hasn't been determined yet.
Yeah, yet to be determined. Thank you very much.
This is the application for
I
the
did
truck parking.
give you.
Yes, I do. I have them. I have them both here, John.
But that's what we voted the hours on.
Right.
Okay, that's what we got.
Yeah.
That's what we voted.
Okay.
Yeah, right?
Yep, I just.
Okay?
Thank you. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, that does bring a question up. When you're saying that something would be denied, I would ask that you don't have to answer this directly, but would it be denied without prejudice?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So basically, how we're advocating we proceed on this, we seem to all be in agreement at this point, is that we're going to make a motion to approve the special use permit for the site plan approval for the evacuation permit for reclamation of past activities. Or should we?
I just want to make sure you close the public hearing.
Yes, it will. And then we're going to do a motion to deny the application for the business because they're going to be coming back on April 13th.
Right.
Without prejudice. But I'll take a motion right now to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Higley, seconded by Commissioner DeGray to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there, all right, Mr. Secretary, whenever you're ready.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for special use permit and site plan approval for excavation permit and reclamation for past activities per section 8.40. Joseph C. LaCory and Joseph and LaCory Sand and Gravel LLC. Owner application map 100, lot 6, map 93, lot 15 in the industrial 1 zone. Per the 28 conditions listed, and with respect to condition number 12, The reclamation activity shall be completed within 1.5 years from the approval date. And condition number 13, a quarterly report detailing the amount of removing the processing material shall be required.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chairman DeGray. Any discussion on that part of the motion? Commissioner Majumdar, go ahead.
Just a small thing that this application was revised March 3rd, 2023.
Actually, the application was not revised. I just crossed out certain things. So
Good.
that was the date of my
Okay.
my memo.
Ignore it then. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on this part of the application? Seeing none, Secretary, roll call whenever you're ready.
Okay. And Louis Fiore,
And this application, motion to approve, yes.
Virginia Higley,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Francis Alaimo,
4.
Kiran Majbudar,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
John Petronella is 4.
The record showed it is unanimous to approve that special use permit and site plan approval for evacuation permit for reclamation. Whenever you're ready for the other motion.
Let me find that motion. That was a motion.
It's right here, John.
Motion to deny.
Approval, right.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for truck parking, earth material storage, and processing of construction offices and facilities.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Secretary Petronella, seconded by Commissioner Higley. Discussion? Can I have my thing back, John? Basically, as chairman, I'm advocating that we deny this without prejudice. The applicant has agreed to come back and split these applications in two and come back in front of us on April 13th. So I am voting to against and denied without prejudice. Whenever you're ready.
Louis Fiore,
Denied without prejudice.
Virginia Higley,
Against.
Linda DeGray,
Deny without prejudice.
Francis Alaimo,
4.
Kiran Majbudar,
Denied without prejudice.
Christian D'Antonio,
Denied without prejudice.
John Petronella, denied without prejudice. And
The reason would be the application for these uses needs to be made separate from evacuation and reclamation activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, we'll see you in a month.
I may have a conflict on the 13th. I have to check my schedule. Do you meet twice in April?
Yes.
So it would be possible to get your second meeting in April if possible? As long as it's, you are having a meeting in it. Okay. I just wanted to ask that before. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thank you, everybody, for the patience with that one. That one got a little brain twister there, a little confusing, but thank you, everybody, for working through that one. Whenever the secretary is ready, before we go on to the next.
what's the,
Yep.
I'm looking for my,
Where's say 24? Is that right there? Is say 24? Is that it right there in the top?
Yeah.
Right there, John.
okay. Okay, Mr. Chair, new business, okay. CGS 8-24, referral from Town Council for improvements to Higgins Park located at 820 Enfield Street, Town of Enfield owner, applicant, map 28, lot 113, TD1 zone.
Thank you. Is the applicant here, the representative? I guess our representative's here.
I believe I'm the representative
Yes.
tonight. So we are, so as you well know, that they've been working on Higgins Park, and there's been some different conceptual plans through the times. But at this time, there's always been a band shell, but they are planning on putting it in. I guess they've found the funding for it, and they're going to be putting it in. And of course, that requires an 824 referral. It was my suggestion that we add the smaller items. If you are unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with adding the smaller items, such as walkway lights and some other playscapes, we could delete that. So either way, that's your prerogative. You'll also be seeing something in the future for the expansion of the parking lot, which is going to go towards Enfield Express.
Thank you. If I may, as your chairman and being in this building quite a bit, as most of you know, I certainly want to thank Lori for adding some of the other things originally to the referral. But myself personally, I'm kind of against adding the other things. I know it's going to be extra work for us and staff. I just would like to keep this right to just the band shell. And I think the only reason here is this, unfortunately, the Higgins Park has been kind of like a moving target. There's been some changes. There's 4 or 5 new commissioners on here. This is a new planning and zoning commission than the last one that ever had a set of plans for the park. And the park plans seem to be a moving target. And that's why I'd be quite frank with you. I had a talk with Lori about trimming this back instead of being a more blanket referral, because I think this commission should get the next time around with the next major enhancement, an 824 referral with plans. Because there's been a lot, and there's new of us that weren't here the last time you guys, or some of you, about half the commission was here before. Certainly there's different leadership, so I would like to see this precise to just the resolution that Lori was nice enough to write up for it, and the resolution is, be it resolved that proposed improvements to Higgins Park, including construction of the band shell, are hereby referred to the planning zoning. And I don't want to carte blanche the other things until we get, a formal presentation again. I think we're due. I think we're due. So do we need to strike out that bullet, or can we just basically do the resolution that down here in the bottom?
You can just strike out the words "and general park improvements" when you speak the motion. So motion to send a positive referral for the installation of a band shell, and then cross out "and general park improvement."
Oh yeah, I see it. It's not. You have the one, John? Is everyone in agreement that we can change? It's the one we got originally. Right now, the motion says motion to send a positive referral for the installation of a band shell and general park improvements to be located at Higgins Park at 820 Enfield Street. I'm recommending that we change that to just be the motion to send a positive referral for the installation of a band shell to be located at Higgins Park at 820 Enfield Street. And believe me, I'm not against the general park improvements. Matter of fact, I'd like to see more. I just think we need to go through the next step with the next bunch of things that are coming down the line. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
So I made that motion to change that referral. Is there a second? Motion made by Chairman Fiore, seconded by Vice Chairman Higley. All those in favor of changing that? Let the record show it was unanimous for that change. So when the secretary would like to read that, whenever he was ready.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, motion to send a positive referral for the installation of a band shell to be located at Higgins Park at 820 Enfield Street.
Motion made by the secretary. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Alaimo. Any discussion? Seeing none, whenever the secretary is ready to call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Lou Fiore.
Yes.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Virginia Higley.
4.
Francis Alaimo.
4.
Kiran Majmudar.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Vincent Grillo.
No vote.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. And John Petronella, 4.
But the record shows unanimous to approve that referral. Moving on to whenever you're ready, Mr. Secretary.
Next item is SPR number 1910, 481 Enfield Street, application for a restaurant in Unit 1, Ameli's LLC, applicant Frank Enterprises 5 LLC, owner map 33, lot 256, BG zone.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to remove this from the table. We did table it last time. Motion made by Commissioner Majumdar,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Higley to remove SPR 1910 from the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show is unanimous to remove this item from the table. The applicant here, recognize your name and address, please.
This on, okay. Hello, good evening. I'm Sasha Skerla, Skerla. I'm the owner and a manager at the former Polish home here in Enfield since 2010. I own and manage the businesses in there, the Pierogi Queen Bakery and the Smoke Barbecue and all country banquet facility in the former Polish home. And we're applying for for use change in existing commercial building on 481 Enfield Street. The building that there's a Dollar General right now, Cars Hardware, and Most Excellent Comics. And there's one unit that's free there on the, I would say, left side. The far end unit, it's been free since, I think, 5 years now. And we are looking to opening a restaurant, actually to moving our existing business from the Polish National Home into a new, bigger space. We need a bigger kitchen. So our business has been, during COVID especially, has grown. The part of our business that's the pierogi make, we contracted the Big Y now, and we have many more stores that we supply, and we can't keep on producing those pierogi in the small kitchen in the old Polish home. And also our barbecue business has grown up way more than the but that our kitchen has a capacity to produce in the existing building. We can't have big trucks coming, the 18-wheelers, and with deliveries over there in the Thompsonville area. And we are looking to relocate the same business model, the production of pierogi and the smoked barbecue in the new place.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant? Commissioner DeGray?
First off, this will create a huge problem for me. My waistline will expand. That's a huge problem. I was over in that parking lot. Will there be restriping in that parking lot if you go over there?
The owner said that once he does rent all the businesses, he's planning to redo a part of the parking. I don't know which part, I don't know how much, but he said he will be investing in the business. He didn't until he rented all the places.
Okay. All right. That was my question because I'm in that parking lot a lot.
That's bad. We will not be doing that as just a tenant, but I was told that was one of my requests when I was before signing the lease to have some parking lot fixed.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, it sounds like, are you totally vacating the bottom part of the Polish home where you are now? Is that going to be a satellite or?
No, this is the kitchen part is going to be closed, but the banquet halls will stay and we'll continue to operate the banquet halls.
Yeah.
We have a catering license, so we'll be cooking in the new kitchen, but this one will be closed.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Any questions from staff? No. Like I said, I think this was pretty much close to an administrative approval if there had been a restaurant use before in that building. So basically the only reason why they're here is because it's a new use, so. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Oh, sorry.
You were early on the cue.
Yes, yes.
We just like food.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve SPR number 1910, including a waiver of site plan requirements per section 9.10.2C of the zoning regulations. Application for site plan approval to allow 5,700 square feet restaurant catering, commercial kitchen and bakery with an ancillary subordinate gallery used for art exhibits, craft and antique exhibits or exhibitions and display at 481 Enfield Street. Ameli's LLC, applicant Frank Enterprises 5 LLC, owner, map 33, lot 256, BG zone and Enfield Street design overlay. Per the reference plans, reports, and application materials listed herein with the following following modifications and 17 conditions of approval.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chairman Higley. I'm getting tired. Any discussion? Seeing no one, ready for the roll call, Mr. Secretary.
Lou Fiore.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Virginia Higley.
4.
Francis Alimo.
4.
Kiran Majmudar.
4.
Vincent Grillo. Christian D'Antonio.
4.
And John Petronella.
4.
4.
Let the record show unanimous approval. Good luck. You've been approved, and good luck on your move, and I'm sure things are going to work out fine for you. Good night, too.
Thank you.
We should ask him when he was going.
Yes, before you leave, sir.
Sure.
Before you leave, what's your target date for opening there?
3 months, 12 to 16 weeks.
Okay, well, good. All right, thank you. Good luck. All right. All right, moving on to other business.
Quick comment for the staff. This getASitePlan.com, I've never seen that before. It's something that.
It's a new one on me, too.
70.
You can Google anything, find anything.
All right, we're going to move on. We move on. Other business discussion on draft of plan of conservation development. Lori and I had a couple of updates for you. Again, I want to remind everyone that our public hearing will be on Thursday, March 23rd, starting at 6 p.m. The whole night is, other than 1 or 2 emergency type situations that might crop up, we plan on dedicating the whole night for the public to speak in front of us on March 23rd about the POCD. And then we are having a special meeting on Thursday, March 30th, for us then to discuss the comments from all the various public hearings and whatever else we've received, and if we want to make changes to the POCD and do whatever we have to do. Having said that, there are a couple things that we did want to make you aware of. One of the things, Lori, if you could please explain, because we do want to address a couple of items that come up that aren't related to our regulations or discussions that we have to have. They're just strictly informational that we thought that maybe you commissioners would like to know and the public would like to know. So this way we can answer some of their questions, so maybe we're not doing it on March 23rd and save some time. So Lori, if you could please explain, because one of the things that came up was people were saying, how come we weren't adding the new apartments that have been approved over the last year or two, that Don didn't add those into his apartment for affordable housing calculations. If you could explain the consequences of that, why we might not want to do it, I'd appreciate that.
Oh, right. So first, I just want to clarify that our meeting is starting at 6 on the 23rd, not at 7.
Yeah.
So I didn't. So as far as that is concerned, when you stick to market rate housing, that increases the number of housing units, so therefore that decreases the percentage of affordable housing. So that, it sort of makes sense when you think about it, but if you're not thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, we'll just do market rate housing. But it's like, well, that will lower the threshold.
Right.
So
by us adding those apartments that were approved at Blair Manor the old school WYMCA, what we just did for St. Adalbert's would actually lower percentage from 12 to maybe 11, maybe 10. So there's a reason why you don't. It's actually a state statute. So you cannot, at this point in time, you cannot add market value housing into your affordable housing calculations. That might change. I noticed they had a hearing on that. But as of today, you can't, if you add those, it lowers your percentage. So that's one of the reasons why Don, rightfully so, didn't add them in. We are going to have a map book. There was some, not I want to say criticism, but concerns. I mean, part of it was the software that Don was using. The only way he can get full-page maps is if it was done not in portrait, if it was done in landscape, and most of the people in the commission didn't want the document to be done in landscape. So that kind of forced Don now to augment that. The maps are small, but he's going to augment that with full blown-up maps in the amendment book. So there will be a map book. We knew that all along. That was part of the equation.
Yeah, that was already planned, that it was going to be a map book. So actually probably most of the graphics as well, just everything will be in that book, full scale and easy to read. And we'll probably try to make each of the maps, even though it's in landscape, we'll still put a full page in.
Yep. Did you want to address the acronyms?
Yeah, and this was another thing, we already realized that we needed to have definitions and acronyms called out, so that was already in the plan, or plan of attack, rather.
So that will be included also in the POCD. It's not there now, but staff's working on that.
Yep.
The other part was one of the things that kept coming up, I noticed in a couple of the comments, and some people did in front of the public hearing, is as far as I know, I remember when we did, but as far as I know, there is no moratorium on condos or over 55 adult communities here in the town of Enfield. I know the regulations were changed a few years back or tightened up a little bit, but there is no moratorium. So I know there was at one time.
Yep.
Was that in
Years ago.
the late 80s,
Yeah.
early 90s? There was a moratorium for a while, but there is no moratorium now. So if there's a conception out there that there is, that's false. So we wanted to get that on the record.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just one of the things that I wanted to mention as your chairman, and having dealt in prior positions working with what we call groups, is one of the things that keeps coming up is, and I know it was done in the last POCD where we were compared to Summers, to Suffield, and Long Meadow. Those are not towns that are in our group. And we're not Suffield, we're not Summers, and we're certainly not Long Meadow. And yet Don, he tried to use communities in our capital region, so he compared us to West Hartford or East Hartford. Maybe in retrospect, those probably weren't the correct towns to compare us to either. Towns that are in our groups, town that we should be looking at to see, not just here. I know the Board of Ed uses some of these same towns, and I think the council does for some of their projects, is towns that are similar to us. Manchester, Southington, Wallingford. Those are towns in our ERG units, not Suffield, not Summers. We've never been Suffield. We've never been Summers. And if we were close to them, that ship sailed a long, long time ago, probably when my dad was sitting here. So, and my cousin before that. So we're not those towns. We are Manchester. We are Wallingford. We are Southington. I just wanted to make that point because that keeps cropping up in some of the comments that we're getting. So as your chairman, and also putting on a hat for other things that I've done through the years, I just wanted to get that in the record. Not am I saying it publicly. So having said that, that's kind of it for POCD. We're on for March 23rd. We're going to have our public hearing. I know the council is going to have some discussion on this Monday night on the 20th. They're going to do what they feel they have to do. They're in a different position than we are. They're elected officials. We're appointed by various councils. So we have a different perspective, and we're going to have to do what we have to do on the 23rd and 30th. Sure.
So my question is, you were talking about the apartments, where people
Yes.
were bringing up apartments, and we mentioned 3 specific approvals.
Yeah, just as an example.
So
Yeah.
I think one of them questions were, aren't there parcels of land that are approved now, just haven't been acted on, and they're in that 5-year window? I gotta say South Road, condo units?
Well, South Road was approved almost 20 years ago.
Is it still open?
I have no idea. I don't know if they've ever
Do we
come
have
back.
anything like that lingering out? Because not just the 3 that the chair talked
Yeah,
about.
that's what he's talking about.
I'm not sure what
Good 15.
project you're talking about, but if it was done
Top
20
of
years
Barrett
ago
Road.
without,
Top of Barrett Road. There was a planning, I forgot with many, I think I was on the council when they
No,
were
I think it's
approved.
more, it's up more towards Enfield Street.
Yeah.
Well, if it, whatever it is, if it was approved 20 years ago
No,
and they
I don't know
didn't
if
come
it's
in
20.
for extensions,
No.
even if they did, it would have expired.
Is it, I don't know if it's open, because I thought that was mentioned, parcels, like a lot of units.
It was mixed use. It had commercial and small business and homes and apartments.
Where was that on South Road?
It's across from, it's either Phoenix or the other road.
Across from Freshwater.
Yes, yes.
So most likely, if it hasn't been built, it's expired.
Yeah.
So that's all I could say.
That's what I was wondering,
Without knowing exactly what you're talking about.
Sometimes people come in and renew them for another few years, and I don't know if there was any of
Well,
those
there-
hanging out there. I'm familiar with the ones you mentioned.
Right, what, on Barrett?
Part of the, no, the three we talked about. Because that was part of the approval process for
Yep,
those.
and I might even have forgot one, I might even have another one.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to make that a point about adding those to the equation lowers our percentage.
Right, changes it.
Well-
Right now, we're at 12 point, which we can't really add it to because they're not affordable housing. They're market value.
Okay.
I just want, yeah.
Just, we had talked about maybe just, I wanted to just clarify some definitions.
Oh,
A number of people had asked, what is the definition of multifamily? And it's 3 or more units. So, and then there seems to be some misconception out there that when we do multifamily, that it's like a new zone. So multifamily is actually just, it's an application that's always a special use permit, and it's very site-specific. The density will depend on whether it's, multifamily condos or the planned unit development, or whether it's senior housing. All the density would change, but it's site-specific. So it's not a zone that goes across anything.
Right.
So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you so much. We just wanted to get that out there for everyone. All right, let's move on from that. Any enforcement reports? Any correspondence? Any commissioners' correspondence?
I actually have some correspondence, but go ahead.
Good. Good, all right, go ahead.
No, you. So just reporting out for Rick today. You were wondering about One Peerless Way.
Yes.
So, excuse me, the as-bills are supposed to be prepared by the end of next week, and supposedly they're making appointments for inspections.
Okay.
So,
Fantastic, and we're making some progress.
yeah,
It was funny how that came up in another application tonight.
yes. So.
Thank you so much.
And then he just wanted to let you know that he's issued zoning permits for the North Central Connecticut Chamber of Commerce Home and Product Show.
Yeah.
That's going to be April 1st and 2nd, and it's going to be indoor and outdoor. So they're going to have the outdoor areas and portions of lots 8 and 9 on the south side, over where the Macy's men's furniture was, and vendors inside the square for home and products, and then RVs and food trucks and animal rescue services and a car show outside. So they're looking to have 6 to 10 outdoor vendors, 100 cars, and 110 to 140 indoor vendors. So, again, that was April 1st from 9 to 5 and April 2nd from 10 to 3. And the second one is also at the mall, and this is a food truck festival for May 13th and 14th. The 13th, it's 11 to 7, and the 14th, it's 11 to 6. And there's going to be, where is it? Sorry, here it is. 30 to 40 food trucks, craft vendors, and children's rides. So that's going to be over by the east side of the square.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Commissioner Limo, you had something?
Through Chair to Lori. You're probably not going to know the answer to this. You might do some digging. Do we know why the Costco, Kirkland and Enfield was denied a liquor store? Seeing that Windsor obviously is in the same state, they were allowed through Liquor Commission, Liquor Control to have a package store at that facility. When they came to Enfield, it was later, after the initial building was built, they were rejected. I'm just wondering if our
They have a
ordinance
liquor
changed?
store.
Yeah, but it's not theirs.
It's just not a Kirkland store.
Right, that's what I'm wondering, why,
I was not here. I have really no idea
I
as
don't know,
to
seeing that we're
what the
doing our
past was with
PLCD
that.
and we're gonna be looking at our regulations, not if there's one in South Windsor, which is Connecticut, so the liquor control obviously doesn't have an issue. I don't know why they were turned down.
I have no idea. You sure it was?
It may not be that they were turned down. It just may be that
They
somebody
decided to
came in
outsource it.
first or something.
Yeah.
No, they were not allowed to do it because of either a regulation in town or the Liquor Control Commission. So obviously, that's changed because South Windsor has it. But, so I don't know if it was one of our ordinances.
Yeah, so does Farmington or West Hartford.
Right. So so the package store piece was added on a couple of years after the building was opened, and they weren't allowed to use Kirkland.
So let me ask you a question. I'm not being facetious with this question. Why do we care?
I'm just wondering why.
Oh, okay.
Because we're supposed to be pro-business and active, and we're looking at the mall area, and we're
Supposed to
looking
be
at.
balanced business. Residents, business, government.
Right.
Balanced.
Government last.
Government, everything across the board balanced, my friend.
So, no, just a question that we're looking at that area as our hub. They're obviously.
Well, if the staff can find something
Yeah,
back,
I'm
that'd be
curious. I
cute.
mean, I'm just wondering why.
Okay.
And that's our focus area now.
Okay, anybody else?
Lori, thank you.
Anybody else?
Although I do like the Kirkland brand.
Well, a lot of people from Enfield a lot of people from Enfield are driving now to Manchester or East Windsor or South Windsor, I'm sorry, or Springfield.
Then Costco can try to get rid of these guys and come in front of us, and we'll see what happens. It's a business decision.
Right. No, I don't know if they're prohibited. That's my question to
okay.
Lori.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
All right, Director of Planning report?
Working on POCD and budget,
There we go.
among all the other things.
There we go. Opportunities, unresolved issues. I have one thing I just want to mention. I don't mean to be sandbagging you guys. Like I always said, I would never do that. But one thing that came up in a conversation I recently had with a counselor is I know they're looking at reworking their end of the food truck ordinance. Have you been involved with that, I hope?
I have.
Okay, is that going to conflict
kind of
with our
peripheral.
regulations?
They would like to include like ball fields as a place to have the food trucks, provided that if there's like a one of those little shacks, the candy shack or whatever they called them, that whoever runs that agrees to have them there. I think that they would like to expand food trucks overall throughout town. I have not been to the meetings, but Sheila, our town clerk, goes to those.
Yeah.
So she's been speaking with Rick and I and reporting back, but I haven't heard anything lately, so.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that because who knows if that's going to grow legs or not. I know I wasn't on the commission last time you guys debated that, but I know you did extensively, so. Go ahead, Commissioner DeGray.
Just a note on that is the brick and mortar restaurants were our biggest driving factor when we developed those regulations. I know we have a new set of council people also that weren't on the council when that was all going on, but the big concern was the brick and mortar is we're paying rent, we're, paying electric, we're doing all of this, and then you're going to put a food truck right outside our door.
Yeah.
That was a really huge, so I don't know if.
They're
some of the
fully
new
aware of that.
council- Okay.
Yes, we have relayed that information, so.
All right, great, thank you.
Were you on the?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so you were on the PCC then. So Were there a lot of brick and mortar operations that came out, or was it just a couple?
Yes.
Because
No,
somebody told
a
me
lot.
that only a few people came out. I was like,
There was
that
a
doesn't
lot.
make sense. There were a lot, okay.
There.
A lot.
There was.
Okay.
So you can see by the consensus here that it's still pretty much a concern of the majority of the P and Z members
Yeah.
about this ordinance and where it's going. So it's just,
So I have relayed that information,
Okay.
that
I
there was
don't.
concern
I mean,
about that.
Personally, if they were having a game, like at the soccer fields or something, and a food truck was allowed to go there, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But to expand the overall ordinance where it would infringe on our brick and mortar restaurants, I would. So,
I agree, because I was there as well. I think the baseball field, wouldn't be a problem to the restaurant guys.
special events, things of that
Yeah,
nature.
it really- It stemmed from a couple of incidences that happened in
Sure,
town at
sure.
at a certain location, and it was parked there with other restaurants in the area, and it kind of snowballed from there. But the baseball field thing, I don't know, that would be a problem.
Something else that they're trying to do is to make the permitting easier, because right now it's split between like half days. So like if the taco truck that sits out here,
Yeah.
you know, they've got to get a permit for the morning and afternoon, and then late afternoon to evening. So they're trying to make that that little less onerous.
No, that's the town
I don't
ordinance.
remember
Probably
us
elsewhere.
doing that, but
That's the town ordinance part.
Well, that's the town ordinance.
That's the town, that's the council
so
ordinance.
that's a
that wasn't
council
that-
thing. They can change that.
Wasn't PCC.
They can stick their fingers in that. I don't care.
That's not us. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Receipt of applications.
XSP 23-01, 155 Rafferty Road, application for concession stand with restrooms and canopy for delivery area. Randy Daigle, JFK Middle School Renovation Building Committee Chairman, applicant Town of Enfield owner, map 68, lot 149, R88 zone.
And that-
And-
yeah. That'll be on for the April 13th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And SBR 1913, 51 Palumba Drive, application for installation of 3 pre-assembled electric vehicle chargers, 12 spots. Scott Austin, Tesla applicant, Devon Commons LLC owner, map 56, lot 7, BL zone.
Okay. Okay.
It's only 2 applications. And
Okay.
it's probably going to be another one tomorrow.
Another one tomorrow. And we might have a referral, maybe on that 23rd meeting, we might have to do before the
for
public
Higgins-
hearing.
Not for Higgins, for Nathan Hale.
For
The
Nathan.
sale of Nathan Hale.
Yeah, there will be some questions on that, but I'll relay them to you prior. So we might have a referral to do right before we open up the public hearing on the 23rd. We'll see how that develops over the next 2 weeks. Yes.
No, they're looking to sell the property.
Sell
Oh, sell it.
And there's a potential buyer.
I'm not going to ask the question tonight. I won't do it.
No.
I'll wait. Bite my tongue. Okay.
All set.
Yes, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Higley, seconded by Commissioner DeGray to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Let the record show that we've adjourned this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission at 9:39. Thank you very much.